there's a lot going on here that I passed out. There's a whole lot of stuff in the Bible about fear. And when we look around, there's a lot of things that makes us scared. A lot of things that makes us anxious. Case in point. I tried to look up this definition of fear, and what was in my counseling books is fear is a strong emotional reaction to a perceived imminent danger characterized by a fight, flight, or freeze response. Well, we know whenever we get fear, whenever something's about to happen, or we think something's about to happen, then we have all these emotions, this adrenaline that starts pumping, and it gives us the ability to get ready to fight it off or to run. And some people, they will get so stressed, they do like a sheep or a little small goat, and they'll freeze. And they're the ones that's at the prey of everybody coming out. And that's the scariest one to do. But it says fear can be real or imagined, rational, irrational, normal, or abnormal. But I like this part. It says fear acts as a protective reaction placed in us by our Creator to activate all of our physical defense systems when we face real danger. Fear triggers the release of adrenaline in the body that both prepares and propels us to action. Often it's called fight or flight. If you watch a horse, whenever you go to them, they're prey animals, right? One thing you have to do is open your fingers and they look at you like you have claws and they'll run. That's how a lot of people trains them in a round pen. They'll open their fingers and make them run until they tire out and close them, and they'll close their fingers for them to slow down, and they'll keep on doing that to build them up, to manipulate them and do what they want. The first thing a horse will do, though, is it'll empty its bladder, because it'll give it 1 or 2 pounds lighter so it can move faster. Same thing happens for us. We take precautions within us. We don't know exactly what we're going to do until that moment comes. But if we condition our heart on the character that we have, then no matter what comes, we're going to react in that character. Sometimes we will fail. We are not perfect. But the trick is not staying in that imperfectness, but picking ourselves up when it comes, knocking the dirt off, and trying again. Saying I'm sorry to someone that we hurt. Repenting before God if it's going against Him, and striving again. We find this whenever Jesus is on trial, and that's what I wanted to look at. We're going over to Matthew 26. We start 56 right there. It's just the end of what Jesus was saying, but it talks about the disciples. It says, but all this has taken place that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled. That was the last thing Jesus said to them before they took him away. And then it says, then all the disciples left him and fled. And those who had seized Jesus led him away to Caiaphas, and the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were gathered together. But Peter also was following him at a distance as far as the courtyard of the high priest, and entered in and sat down with the officers to see the outcome. And then we find out where it flashes over into the trial and everything that's going on. But I want to jump on down to Peter in verse 69. It says, now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a certain servant girl came to him and said, you too were with Jesus, the Galilean. But he denied it before them all, saying, I do not know what you are talking about. And when he had gone out to the gateway, another servant girl saw him and said to those who were there, this man was with Jesus of Nazareth. And again he denied it with an oath. I do not know the man. And a little later the bystanders came up and said to Peter, surely you too are one of them, for the way you talk gives you away. Then he began to curse and to swear, I do not know the man. And immediately a crow crowed. Now, there's been different theological conversations about that. The roosters wasn't supposed to be in the city like that. But they also called the changing the guards, which is in shifts, and one was at 3 o'clock, the rooster crow, because they were sounding an alarm for them to change shifts, the guards. So it could be either way. Either time, it was a specific time that Jesus had already foreseen and told him about, and he was going to deny him 3 times before that. And we find before this that he already told him, I'll go to death, I'll die with you, I'll die for you. You know, he was so gung-ho, but he kept on letting his head get above him. He had all good intentions. But then the flesh would tend to come in. Pride sometimes would come in. Sometimes doubt. But he didn't let it stop him. And you look at this right here, you'll hear a lot of preachers talk about how the fear overtook him. But look at where he was. He had already took a stand before all the disciples. He kept on taking a stand for what was right. All the disciples fled, but yet he was him and one other. John tells us about the other one that actually went in to get him access into it. Were the only ones that went all the way to where they were taking him. He wanted to be there. He wanted to see the Lord. He wanted to be there to support him. But then when he was faced with it, that's whenever the fear got a hold of him and crippled him. He had already took out a sword and cut off one of the high priest's servant's ear because he was ready to go to fight for him right then out there in the Garden of Gethsemane. The only one that was like, let's go, let's do this. So it wasn't that he was a scaredy cat or they didn't have courage. He was in a place where he didn't know what was going to happen. There's a lot of people in this world like that. A lot of times we're going to find ourselves in situations that we don't know how in the world we got there. But we have some promises. All throughout the Bible we have promises. One of those started all the way back with one of the first 5 books in Deuteronomy. And of course I didn't print that one out. But Deuteronomy 30, I put it on here though. Deuteronomy 31:6 is where Moses said that the Lord will be with us always. He'll never leave us. And we find that again in Matthew. The very last thing that Jesus said was that he would be with us always, even to the end of the age. It's not for us to fight against those that puts us in these situations. It's for us to trust that God's going to bring us through it. It's not for us to fight against the leadership and those that's been placed over us, but it's for us to maintain a godly character before them so that they can see God in everything that we do. So maybe if they are lost, if they are doing something wrong, then they can see the goodness in us and see God in us and pray for them. Continue to pray for them because we don't know what they're going through. We don't know the burdens that they carry. Some of the things that we look at, we have Abraham. We count Abraham as the father of Christianity, right? But yet, if we go back to Genesis 20, we find that he told the king that Sarah was his sister. He didn't tell him that she was his wife because he was afraid they were going to kill him. Fear. Then whenever God put a vision in him and kept him from touching him, it came back, why have you done this? And you find verse 11 in chapter 20 that he says, because I was scared, because I was afraid. But that didn't stop him. Then he prayed for him and to take off the curse of everybody that was there, took Sarah as wife because she was his wife and his half-sister. So he didn't lie, but he also didn't tell him the whole truth because he was fearful. But going down to Jacob, who was coming back, and he was fearing Esau that was going to kill him and his wife and everything. And so he split them up and sent this big old offering to him and stuff, wrestled with the angel of the Lord all night because he was so scared. And even then he lied, said, yeah, I'm right behind you. We're going this way. But yeah, he's one of the patriarchs, one of the fathers. He was the one that was called Israel. Then you have Gideon. Chapter 6 of the Judges. He was one of the judges. And when you had these Midianites, they were coming and ravaging everything that they had. They had to hide in caves. Because if they go out there to even shift their wheat, which they're supposed to throw it up, rub it, throw it up, so the wind can take the shells out, and the good wheat will fall back down. They were actually doing that in the wine press to keep these people from seeing them and coming and trying to take what they had, because they would come and take all their livestock and all the crops. And then they were fearful, saying that they can go really fast and get people from long distances. The thing they were scared of, camels, because they could go 3 or 4 days without food or water at long distance and fast. And that's what the Midianites had. But he tells God, said, how can I do this? Because they got on that place as they started worshiping false idols. They turned their heart over to Baal. And so he's over there asking God, how can I, of the family of the lowest of these, be such a great warrior like you're trying to tell me to be? See, God does not call people because they have the qualities already in them. Because then you can say that you did it. But God will call people that are humble enough to allow Him to work through them. Because He's the quality that we need to go against anything in this world. I actually tested God a few times, which the Bible does say not to test God. But He's like, if this is you, putting this fleece down, let only the fleece be wet in the morning and everything else be dry. It happened. So, all right, one more time, Lord, please don't be mad. Let that be the only thing dry and everything else wet this morning. And it happened. It's like, yes, Lord, forgive me, whatever you want. And he got up and led them to victory. In the name of the Lord. So we find that in that story that they wanted him to be the ruler of his 30 sons. I'm not going to ask about that. But he denied it, said that God should be the ruler. God should be the ruler, not me, not my sons. We go over Elijah. Elijah, a famous prophet, right? He's known for challenging the prophets of Baal, because after Gideon, they went right back to worshiping Baal again. 450 priests to Baal, and here he is running and hiding because it's like, I'm the only one left. And God finally gets him out there, stops the rain for like so long, and then he comes back and he challenges all the prophets of Baal. Said, I tell you what, come on now. We'll have 2 offerings. We'll see if your God answers or my God. Whoever God does not answer, he dies. One man, 450. Then he starts making fun of them while they're out there. Oh, come on, maybe he's asleep. Maybe he's going to the bathroom. Cut yourself more. Right? Poking fun at him because it's supposed to be a God of lightning. God that takes care of all of that. And just bring down one bottle of lightning, that's it. Couldn't do it. And then comes his time. I'll wet everything. We're going to make sure this rigger is good. God, show him. Boom. He goes out there and slays 450 prophets of Baal. And then he hears that Jezebel heard about it, the queen, and wants to kill him. So now he's running. He runs until he can't run no more, then gets behind a tree, and he says a prayer. Lord, please, I'm tired. I'm all alone. please take me out of this world. I'm done. I can't do this. He just killed 450 prophets of Baal. He just called fire down from heaven to consume everything. And he feared for her saying that she was going to kill him. She comes out the window and the dogs eat her. Nothing's too big for God. God actually opens his eyes. Angel wakes him up, which would be enough to scare me to death. But angel wakes him up and says, here, eat twice. So you have a long journey ahead. And then he opens his eyes to all these others that was hiding, waiting for God to tell them it's time. Praying. Continuing to pray. We have Paul, who we have all these letters about. He was even let down in a basket one time to get away. He was ran from city to city to get away from the Jews that was trying to go after him. It's in Acts 18, it talks about his fear. And then 1 Corinthians 2:3, he writes about his fear. That even when he was with them, he was scared. And then we find Peter right here. Just because someone gets scared, has fear, that's normal. That's what God gave us. And just because we fail at one thing doesn't mean that we're not going to be picked up. If we were perfect and had fear to conquer everything that comes in our life, what would we need God for? If we had the answers for everything that we face, what would we need God for? How many would actually get on their knees and pray to God if everything they wanted they could get and nothing bad ever happened to them? That's the reason why he never healed Paul's deficiency. To keep him humble. A lot of times things happen to us. We don't know why. They just do. We're in this flesh. We're in this world. Things is going to happen. It's not God trying to harm us or hurt us or anything like that. He says that he smiles on the just and the unjust. Because let's face it, go over to 1 Corinthians 6, 9, 10. You have all these different types of people, actions and everything that will keep you out of heaven. But then if you touch on 11, it says, such were you before you were saved by his blood. He loved every last one of us. They died for us while we were yet sinners. The ultimate one I like is Jesus. Why was he praying in the Garden of Gethsemane? For strength. He was praying because he didn't want to go through that. He didn't want to have to pay that price. But he knew that's why he came. God, Father, if there is any other way, please remove this cup from me. There are so many times that we go through that in our life, with our family, with our loved ones, with our own self. We don't know what to do. Lord, please take and remove this cup. Fear, anxiety is such a thin line. And whenever we start thinking about anxiety, it leads to all kinds of other things. Clinical problems, phobias, panic disorders, OCD, anxiety due to medication, post-traumatic stress, acute stress disorder, substance. It's used to as the number 3 reason for someone to turn to substance abuse of any kind. Anxiety is what they call it clinical, about all this fear that comes in us, whether it's wanted or not. But if I can figure out where it is real quick. Isaiah 35:4. It's not something that's new. Isaiah writes, say to those with anxious heart, take courage, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance. The recompense of God will come, but he will save you. then the eyes of the blind will be opened. He ties them both together. And this is back in the Old Testament. And then Peter talks about it as well. 1 Peter 5:7. Well, 5:6 says, "Humble yourself, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you at the proper time, casting all your anxiety upon him, because he cares for you." That's the reason why I love the Serenity Prayer. It was made in the early 1900s, and there's like several versions of it. But it says, "God, grant me the serenity," which means peace of mind, to accept the things that I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. A lot of times we want to change our situations. We want to change the people around us. We want to change the way they think and everything else. You can't change other people. The only thing we can change is ourselves. We can't change the situations that we're in at present after we already got ourselves there or after they already came into us. But we can change how we think about them and how we respond to them. But we have to first know the difference and give it to God and ask for his help. One of the biggest things that's happening, we can find over in 2 Timothy. I know I'm jumping all over, I'm sorry, but it all ties together. I believe this whole Bible, written over 1,500 years, 66 books, 40 different authors, or writers, one author. It all ties together. The same meaning from cover to cover is like through it all. Yeah, 2 Timothy 1:7. Maybe nobody will hate me after this one. It says, "For God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power and love and discipline." One of the other translations that I had says, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control." A lot of times we find ourselves in certain situations because of a lack of self-control. You'll have even people that has given in to lust saying, "But I wouldn't have these feelings if it wasn't given to me by God." No, you won't have these feelings if you were in this flesh. Because we all face our inner demons every single day, and we have to determine who we're going to serve, and we have to abide by him or not. Rules are in place for a reason. Some natural, some spiritual, and we have to seek him for his help. That's the reason why leaders put rules into play, to keep us safe, to take and try to condition us. My wife turned me on to one show. I had to watch a little bit of it, called about cheapskates. One of those, they'll do it. They take extraordinary self-control measures to try to make things better for them financially, so that they can retire early and everything else, not going with the world. One of them was pick up pennies and everything. It says, if you worry about the senses, the small details, then the dollars will worry about themselves. And the same thing happens with us. If we dig back to the small things, the small rules, the small details, and we act on self-control, following them, then the big things wouldn't be an issue. Our character will already be in the habit of doing what's right, of maintaining ourselves. But once we slide, it's downhill. But see, that's where we turn into fear. How does that apply? Well, that is what John says over in 1 John 4. 17, 18. It says, "By this love is perfected with us, that we may have confidence in the day of judgment, because as he is, so also are we in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. So if you don't feel guilty about anything, why should you fear? If we have a fear and we have to search the Bible, search people out to try to give us reasons that what we're doing is okay and we're going to be safe. If you have to have something burning on your heart where you have to search and change meanings and try to pick, well, it has to mean this so you feel better, then maybe God's trying to tell you something. If you have to make excuses for why you're breaking rules, procedures, policies, then maybe you do have something to fear. But it starts inside. It's an internal battle that we all face. And we all stand in judgment for it one day. But as long as we take care of the small details and trust in God and give ourselves to Him, then we have no reason to fear. So we know what tomorrow's going to bring. I know it's easy to talk about fear and anxiety and all that until you're in the mix. But whenever I was researching all this, I used to pull up every now and then how many people was murdered across the world the previous years. One thing would tell me 4,000 something, 2,000, 3,000 over the years. And that's only in certain countries. But whenever I do it for the whole world, it comes up to an average of 90 to 100,000 people murdered in some way, shape, or form for their belief in Christ a year. And we want to talk about what we don't have. Some of these countries, they'll actually go in, bust into the home, kill the parents, steal the children, so if they're young enough so they can raise them up in their faith and raise them to kill Christians. And that still happens overseas. So what's our excuse? We want to fit in with the crowd. We want to satisfy a few seconds of lust, of pride, of greed. Then we have reasons to fear. We all face things inside, but give it to God and let Him take care of it. And if things go south, well, guess what? He's still right there. We just trust in Him, not just for this world, not just for the things we're going through, but for the outcome as well, regardless of what it might be, like the 3 Hebrew children. No matter if it's to our death, we'll still obey you and trust in you. And I praise God for that. But He'll help you out. He will give you that faith. Just trust Him.